thank you so much, everyone, for taking the time to talk to us today about the Metro levy. Can you start off, and I'm not sure if President Peterson, if you're the person who's going to start us off on what the levy would do?
Yeah, exactly.
Great.
So let me start. As you guys know, since 2013, the Portland Metro Parks levy has made a huge difference across the region, helping with our 18,000 acres of parks, natural areas, and wildlife habitat that connects the people with nature close to home. And you know that the original reason for doing all of this at the regional level was not to be duplicative, but to actually do things that the cities and counties weren't doing in the space. So we don't provide the small pocket parks. We're not about recreational soccer fields or basketball courts, right? Our mission is that as the region grows, that we protect and restore parks, rivers, wetlands, forests, and other natural areas for the benefit of people, fish, and wildlife. So I think what I find so intriguing about the growth of this program is that we have been able to bring a whole new quality of life to this region as we grow, and we try to make sure that we are protecting and restoring the habitat and being able to, at the very basic level, bring the salmon back, right? And get those fish swimming upstream, because they are an indicator species of whether we're healthy in this region or not for the long run. It's also a significant economic opportunity for the region in terms of our climate resiliency goals. The voters first approved the levy in 2013, then renewed it in June of 2023. This is not a new tax, right? It's a renewal of the existing tax rate of 9.6 cents per thousand of assessed value, which is now about $24 per year for a home assessed at $250,000. And it represents around 70% of our operating budget for parks. This measure will help us take a lot of the action to plant more trees, protect cool waters and the streams for fish, restore critical wildlife habitat, and keep our communities livable. These investments actually save the region's taxpayers money by lowering the cost of stormwater management, flood mitigation, and climate change adaptation. So I think it speaks to the fact that the folks in this region love their parks and nature, and we have about 2.5 million visitors that enjoy Metro's developed parks each year. The majority of the funds that come in from the measure pay for our parks rangers that allow us to keep the park open in terms of the bathrooms and keep things safe and secure for the visitors, as well as the restoration projects that we have. Under this measure, around 100 projects will be able to be done. If not, it would only be 10. And as we move forward, the Nature in the Neighborhood grant program has become like second in popularity of things at Metro, next to the Oregon Zoo, because it really delves into being able to provide grants to just about any organization that is working to bring people access to nature, whether that is through signage, whether that is through getting kids, and very much focused on BIPOC kid access or BIPOC community access to the parks. So we're very proud of the Nature in the Neighborhood work, and we can talk a little bit more about specific things that both of those, the restoration and Nature in the Neighborhoods, does. But those are the three big parts of what the levy funds.
Great, thank you. Can you tell me, you mentioned that it helps maintain some 18,000 acres. What percentage of those acres are open to the public, and in what way? Like, are they able to, is it for walking only, or what are the uses available?
It's a range, and I would have to look to John for the percentage that are actually accessible at this moment. But what I would start by saying is that the first goal is the restoration, right? So that's why some are still not available. The second is that when we have come to the point where we feel we have restored and we have a plan to introduce humans back into the environment, that's where the capital bond money comes in, into providing the access point, the driveway, the parking lot, and any facilities that we need at the site, as well as the trails. So it's a continuum of care, right, for the parks. First, we have to bring them back up to a standard where we have restored it, and then we can provide access. So John, I don't know if you want to give an estimate. Do you have an estimate?
Sure, just to help expand on that. All of the land that we purchase is open to the public. And as President Peterson points out, some of them are in various stages of conservation or restoration work, which means we're trying to limit some of the access as we're doing major plantings and restorations, but all of it is available to the public. We have 19 what we call nature parks and 14 historic cemeteries, which are more designed specifically for humans to come into. And so I have to go and get the specific numbers, but of that 18,000 acres, I believe about roughly a third of those make up the nature parks and sort of designed specifically for human activities. The rest of the natural areas are open to the public, have signage and information sort of the basics of how and when they're open, sunrise to sunset, and have informal trails that people have developed over time. So yeah, I'm happy to get some of the specific percentage breakdown because it's a growing number.
Is there a timeline by which Metro is committing to make certain parks available or kind of open up some of these areas for greater recreation?
Well, that would have been spelled out in the bond measure on which parks are being redeveloped, like Blue Lake, right? We have issues with bathroom capacity and access to the lake. And other facilities there that were just completely out of date. So those are existing parks with already existing access at a very high level, very highly used, versus the bond projects that were helping, for instance, like the last bond open up Chehalem Ridge, right? So we would have to give you that list of projects with their kind of their access date.
And that's all bond money as opposed to levy money that would go to, would any of that levy money go to support that?
Well, it would support from the staff perspective.
Okay. Let me ask, so is the idea that Metro will have to go to voters every 5 years for this money in order to maintain these properties it's buying?
Yes.
Okay, so there isn't any kind of development to some other revenue source. It's just every 5 years go to
Metro,
voters.
Right, Metro doesn't have any other source of money.
How did you arrive at the number you're at? I mean, was it just a matter of looking at what's currently being collected from taxpayers, or was there a list of expected expenses over the 5 years, and that's where you got the calculation?
Yeah, through community engagement, staff came up with the list of restoration projects, as well as what level we would fund nature in the neighborhoods, and what we needed in order to be able to make sure we had enough staff and rangers out there.
And I guess what I mean is the amount you're going to voters that you're asking for from voters, is that driven by what's already been accepted? So the idea that, you know, we won't be increasing the bill, but we're not going to be taking less.
Well, I think we certainly didn't go out for more.
Right.
So I think we're being realistic, looking forward of what it takes to make sure that we, again, make sure that in these times that we have the right access and the level of necessary staff to be able to, again, maintain and keep the park safe and secure.
And can you talk a little bit about actually, before we get into nature and neighborhoods, Michael, I'm wondering if you can tell me a little bit about why you support this bond, or I'm sorry, why you support this levy.
Thanks, Helen. For me, I think of myself as a community member first before I put any hat on as a business owner or anything else in the region. With the competitive, what makes Portland so special and our region so special is really kind of the outdoor recreational areas we have in our community. It makes for a good work-life balance, being able to bring your family out on trails and hiking, enjoying the waters and mountain. Everything is really close by. Um, I was born and raised in Portland, so it's always had a special place in my heart. And and a lot of people move here because of that, the recreational activities and all the other amenities that we have in the area. Parks is very important part of that and the important aspect of that. So we need to make sure we're doing everything we can to increase the amount of space we have to do that type of activity. For me, I always want to take a long-term view on everything that's going on, and President Peterson touched on a lot of this. Is we need to continue to grow and enhance everything in a very climate, thinking about the climate and thinking about everything else that's going on within our environment right now. And I think this bond does address a lot of those things. I think the main thing I always look at with bond measures and whether or not I support it again is Metro being held accountable, and are they doing everything they can with whatever specific asks they're doing? And if you look at the long list of endorsers for the park levy, I think this is one where they've done a great job at enhancing the overall region. And that's a lot of the main reasons why I support this. And I also like the idea that they do have to come back every 5 years and see if it's still on the right track or not. And it's up to the voters at that point. And I think, this time around, the voters overwhelmingly are saying Metro's on the right track with what they're doing with, the park bond and levy. And we want to continue to enhance that part of our community.
Great, thank you. Lynn, I'm wondering if you can also talk about the nature neighborhoods portion. And I apologize because I thought that was strictly through bond funds, but it sounds like it's also supported by levy dollars.
Correct.
And so what are the, okay.
Well, I think on the specifics of the nature of the neighborhood, if you want specific partnerships and grants that we've given out, I think John could probably go through a couple of those.
Yeah, happy to. I guess, is there a specific question that I'd be answered? I guess to clarify one thing, there is nature and neighborhood bond program, and those are for capital grants for local community partners to buy and build nature related activities, projects. The levy nature neighborhood grants provide more of the operational programmatic funding opportunities for nature education, other type of programming, stewardship type activities. So those are the basics, but if there's a specific question that I could answer on the nature neighborhoods levy grants.
I can give some examples of grants that have been awarded. The Asian Pacific American Network of Oregon's partnership with Friends of Trees and Portland State University was used to engage East Portlanders in pursuing strategies for neighborhood greening and hotter summers. As you probably know, when folks were asked out on 82nd Avenue, what is the number one thing that they wanted changed about 82nd Avenue? They wanted trees, because so many people walk along 82nd and wait for the bus. It's the number one bus line, right, of transit ridership in the region. So that area of the region is in deep need of neighborhood greening. Partnership between Portland Audubon, Tualatin Soil Water Conservation District, Backyard Habitat, and Centro Cultural at Centro Cultural's Cornelius campus to connect Latinx members of the community with nature. So that's the type of thing that it does.
Okay, thank you.
And as a matter of scale, as a matter of scale over the life of the two levies, it's been over $9 million that's been invested through this grant program to provide about 136 grants, 76 organizations over 11 cycles of this levy funded nature neighborhoods grant program. And President Peterson just described some of the specific organizations and types of projects.
And why is Metro the right entity to administer this grant program versus any of the other jurisdictions?
Well, nature knows no bounds. Let's start there. There's no boundaries. And I think we fill a niche, again, at that level across the region to be able to create these partnerships, right? So Portland Audubon, Tualatin Soil and Water Conservation District, Backyard Habitat, and Central Cultural. I mean, that is not one city issue, right? That's an entire Washington County kind of issue, West Side issue, to connect Latinx members of the community with nature. That's not one jurisdiction. So I think it's a good level for it to sit at, and was part of the conversations when this levy was originally created with the cities and counties.
I just have one other question, and is the expectation that Metro would go out in a couple years, I guess, with another bond to acquire additional green space?
I think that just depends on where we are with the bond program, how long it takes to roll out, and what does the region want. It's a whole other conversation with the region.
Is this levy going to be sufficient for what Metro has right now for the next 5 years? Is this going to
Yes.
So this level is enough. If there is a significant increase, I mean, in acquiring additional space, open spaces, is the expectation then at that point that this levy would also have to increase?
The first part of your question on is it enough for the next 5 years? I think we grilled John and the staff about that. And the answer was yes, and we feel confident in that. And again, I'm not looking in a crystal ball to a decision that will be made by another council after my next 4 years. So I don't think it's appropriate to comment on what happens after this levy.
Okay, great. Does anyone else have any questions?
Let me just make one closing comment.
Sure.
It's just because I'm so proud of everything that Parks and Nature has done, especially during COVID. I think I'll remember when we had lockdown, and at the very beginning, everybody was like putting yellow tape around all of the play structures and closing down parks and shutting off access because we had no idea, right? But as we learned, 6-foot spacing, our parks became filled with people because they're big enough that people felt comfortable. And we have seen this huge surge nationwide, right? As people have rediscovered the parks near them and how they value them, as well as every national and national park and forest has been filled up with people camping. So I am chagrined that my favorite hiking spots now have more people, but I'm also overjoyed, right? That we have rediscovered our own backyard and value it in the way that we have. And I think that's the type of outpouring of support that we have seen from this program, and obviously all of Oregon's support for parks and open space.
Right, and that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think something that would be reassuring is to know just what the timeline is for bringing on a greater percentage of acreage that Oregonians can easily access. A third when we've had some of these properties going back more than 2 decades, and there's been many millions devoted in both through the levy and the bond. It seems like there would be a greater percentage available for Oregonians. But understood, I certainly have heard that from a number of people about being happy to have open spaces during COVID. So.
Yeah, well, I think you raise a good point. I mean, the difficulty of some of these sites and restoration ranges from Willamette Cove, right? A brownfield that we've been waiting for a decision from DEQ, and now we're moving forward to at least remediate, that doesn't mean that there can actually be access, right? We've had to not allow access into that land, and now we'll be putting some of that bond measure into being able to remediate it, and then we'll need a plan to actually make it a park and then have the money to do the park. So it takes some of these, that's the extreme case, but some of it, the restoration work to just be able to bring the land back to habitat and restore it is just, Chehalem Ridge is a good case in point, right? It was a managed forest for timber, and now moving it in the direction of being primarily for habitat and for trail walking took an amazing amount of effort. And I think just understanding how to manage the land to move it back into that direction, it takes a lot of work. So I understand. I'm just saying these are the things that we face.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate your fitting us in.
No, thank you for the late start. Much appreciated.
Take care, everyone. Thank you.